Imagine the most critical intersection in the global aviation network, a mega hub handling 100 million passengers a year, moving 7,300 tons of cargo every single day, and acting as the vital bridge between East and West. Now, imagine it coming to a dead, terrifying halt. On March 16, 2026, this wasn't a hypothetical scenario. It was a reality. A drone slipped through the air defense net and struck a fuel storage tank right on the perimeter of Dubai International Airport. The sky filled with black smoke. The airfield went red, and for hours, the world's busiest international airport was completely paralyzed. But what you are seeing on social media right now is only half the story, and in some cases, it's completely fabricated. Today, we are stripping away the fake news and diving deep into the exact aviation mechanics, the staggering economic fallout, and the logistical nightmare of the March 2026 Dubai airport crisis. If you want the hard facts on aviation without the mainstream media fluff, hit that like button and subscribe right now. It helps push this deep dive through the algorithm, and you won't want to miss our upcoming videos. Let's get straight to the facts of the March 16th strike. At around 12:30 a.m. local time, amidst an escalating regional conflict that kicked off in late February, Dubai International Airport, DXB, was hit. The strike targeted a fuel tank in the immediate vicinity of the airfield. Dubai Civil Aviation Authority immediately threw the switch on an emergency protocol, suspending all flight operations. Now, if you have been scrolling through social media, you have probably seen apocalyptic videos showing massive infernos consuming terminals and airplanes. Let me stop you right there. We need to fact-check this immediately. Those viral videos showing a towering wall of fire? Forensic video analysts have proven that footage is actually from an August 2020 fire at a fruit and vegetable market in Ajman, miles away from the airport. Other viral clips of explosions next to a fire truck with the word Dubai painted on the tarmac have been entirely generated by AI. The physical reality of the March 16th strike was serious, but it was not the structural end of DXB. The actual footage, verified by news agencies, shows a distant plume of black smoke. The drone impacted a fuel storage tank, but Dubai civil defense teams reacted instantly, containing the blaze before it could spread to the main jet fuel hydrant lines beneath the apron. There were no casualties reported at the airport fire itself, though the sheer risk factor was astronomical. Specialty risk intelligence firm Russell estimated that at the exact moment of the strike, there were 119 aircraft sitting on the DXB tarmac. We are talking about an estimated market value of $12 billion in aviation assets, fully fueled, fully loaded, parked right next to a targeted zone. From an insurance and risk management perspective, this is a doomsday scenario. So, the fire was put out by 5 a.m., and limited operations resumed a few hours later. You might be thinking, okay, a 7-hour delay, they clean it up, and planes fly again. What is the big deal? In civil aviation, a 7-hour total ground stop at a superconnector hub does not just cause a delay. It breaks the global network. DXB is engineered for absolute maximum turnover. It operates on incredibly tight aircraft rotation banks. When you block the runway for 7 hours, the inbound heavy wide-bodies, the A380s and Boeing 777s, the international flights coming from London, Singapore, and Sydney, have nowhere to go. They either hold in the air burning precious Jet A1 fuel, or they are forced to divert to alternative strips like Al Maktoum International Airport down in Jebel Ali, or even further away to Muscat or Doha. But the nightmare doesn't stop when the fire is put out. Aircraft are now entirely out of position. Flight crews time out on their legally mandated maximum duty hours. Connecting passengers are stranded in terminals. In the first 7 days of this crisis, flight tracking data showed that cancellations across the region's major airports exceeded 19,000 flights. For DXB alone, the localized disruptions triggered a massive cascading effect. You don't just restart an airport of that size. It takes days to untangle the mess, reposition the metal, and get the crews rested and back in the cockpit. And that brings us to the most critical, long-term impact of this closure: the airspace chokehold. The March 16th strike wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader conflict involving sustained drone and missile activity across the Gulf since February 28th. We have seen strikes near Abu Dhabi and interceptions over critical oil hubs. Because of this, The airspace over the Middle East has become a heavily restricted, high-risk zone. Let's look at the global map. If you are flying from Europe to Southeast Asia, you traditionally have two main options. You fly the northern route over Russia, or you fly the southern route over the Middle East. Well, Russian airspace has been heavily restricted or closed to Western airlines for years now. That forced almost all Europe to Asia traffic down through the Middle East corridor. Now, that corridor is incredibly compromised. Airlines are terrified of the liability. The UAE's Aviation Authority has had to manage unprecedented airspace closures, but the airlines themselves are pulling the plug. Lufthansa, Swiss, and Austrian Airlines have completely suspended flights to Dubai until at least May 31, 2026. KLM won't touch DXB until mid-May. Air France, Cathay Pacific, and Singapore Airlines have all executed massive suspensions. When an airline loses the Middle East corridor, they have to fly extreme diversions. They are pushing routes far north near Pakistan or taking massive detours south over Africa. We are talking about adding 90 to 120 minutes of flight time to a standard long-haul route. From an airline economics standpoint, this is devastating. Extra flight time means burning thousands of extra gallons of fuel. It requires heavier takeoff weights, which severely limits cargo capacity. And cargo is where airlines make incredibly high margins. It also strains the aircraft utilization rates. If a Boeing 787 takes 2 extra hours per leg, it might miss its next scheduled rotation entirely. The structural operating costs for airlines right now are skyrocketing, and those costs are going to be passed directly to the passenger. Let's talk about the local carriers, because this is their home turf. Emirates, the undisputed king of the superconnector model, essentially had its main artery severed. During the peak of the disruption, they issued an unprecedented directive: do not come to the airport. They completely suspended transit operations to clear the backlog. Imagine the logistics of communicating to tens of thousands of transit passengers globally that their connection in Dubai simply no longer exists. As of late March, Emirates and FlyDubai are operating, but it is a heavily reduced, skeletal schedule. They are prioritizing bringing people home and clearing out the stranded passengers. Indian carriers like Indigo and Air India have stepped in with specific relief flights to handle the massive expat workforce moving between the UAE and the subcontinent, operating dozens of ad hoc flights just to keep the human supply chain moving. But the situation remains incredibly fragile. A single radar warning, a single piece of intercepted debris falling from the sky, can instantly trigger another ground stop. We also need to look at the engineering vulnerability exposed here. The March 16th attack reinforces a terrifying principle in modern infrastructure. You do not need to destroy a runway or collapse a terminal to shut down a global hub. Aviation systems are highly complex, interdependent networks. A precise strike on a secondary supporting system, in this case, fuel storage, creates a bottleneck that brings the primary operation to its knees. Without a guaranteed safe and continuous flow of jet fuel from the hydrant systems, the massive wide-body jets simply cannot turn around. Dubai Airports has incredibly robust emergency plans, which is why the fire was suppressed before it could reach catastrophic levels. The civil defense response was textbook, but defense systems have to be lucky 100% of the time. A drone only has to be lucky once. The fact that shrapnel and debris are falling into populated zones and critical infrastructure sectors highlights the reality that even the best air defense umbrellas can be saturated or bypassed by low-flying, asymmetric threats. So, what does the future hold for DXB and the regional aviation market? In the short term, expect extreme volatility. If you are flying through the Middle East anytime in the spring or summer of 2026, you must obsessively monitor your flight status. Do not rely on generic advisories. Airlines are making dynamic, minute-by-minute decisions. A flight might be scheduled in the morning and canceled by noon due to a shift in the security posture. In the long term, this crisis forces the aviation industry to rethink the superconnector model. For the last 20 years, the strategy has been to funnel the entire world through 2 or 3 massive hubs in the Gulf. It is highly efficient and incredibly profitable during peacetime. But when geopolitical tensions boil over, that efficiency becomes a single point of failure. We might see a slow shift back to more point-to-point, ultra-long-haul flying, using highly efficient twin-engine jets to bypass conflict zones entirely. But for now, the world's aviation network remains heavily reliant on Dubai. And until the skies over the Gulf are clear of threats, the entire system is going to be operating on a razor's edge. The situation on the ground is changing by the hour, and we will keep analyzing the hard data and the aviation mechanics behind the headlines. If you found this breakdown valuable, please hit the like button and make sure you are subscribed. Drop a comment below. How do you think airlines should adapt to these massive airspace closures? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.